Welcome back to another episode of Me and My Health Up. I'm your host, Anthony Hartcher, clinical nutritionist and lifestyle medicine specialist. The purpose of this podcast is to enhance and enlighten your well-being. And today we have a special guest, Andie Holman. Andie is on the show to enlighten us in relation to nanoplastics and their impact on our health and what we can do about it. How can we make a change? How can we change our habits to improve the environment and ultimately improve our health? So without much further ado, I'd love to welcome you to the discussion I'm having with Andie Holman on her most recently launched book, The Mermaid Wrath. Welcome back on the Me and My Health Up podcast. How are you, Andie?
I'm good, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
So great to have you back on. I really enjoyed our last conversation on scars and how to see a scar and how to, help that healing of that scar. So it was really insightful. And recently you've shared your new adventures and where you've just written a book, which really look forward to getting some insights around that book. So welcome on the show again, Andie.
Thank you. Thank you. The reason that I wrote the book, well, the first book that you interviewed me for, that was working on scars, and that was very much natural health and a hands-on approach to treating scars. And I have now shifted gears. So now I'm writing fantasy, or what one editor has called romantasy. So there is a romantic element to the book. But it's more fantasy with an environmental angle. The reason that I went on this is because I was reading about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and it was so disturbing that I thought, how do we not know this? How are we not all like marching in the streets? Because it's twice the size of Texas, and I didn't know that. And I thought, how did I not know this? And when I told friends about it, they said, no, it's impossible. It can't be that big. Well, it is. It's massive. And I think it doesn't matter. It's massive. And who's going to clean this up? How do we stop this? So then that got me to thinking about, how do other people deal with this? And there's a new term that they're calling eco-anxiety. This is the mental health professionals. And there's another one called Solastalgia, which is a homesickness that comes when your home has been damaged by an environmental crisis. So think of Katrina or the forest fires, people who have lost their homes and they'll never get that back. So there's an element of anxiety and depression and despair. And I wanted to help people pull some of that back, because if we all just think about how bad the environment is and that we're waiting for somebody else to clean it up for us, we're just going to dive into bed and pull the covers over our heads. So the other part being, if you're reading the environmental research, it's depressing. The scientific journals, it's really discouraging. And so from what I've read, a lot of people, they just pretend it isn't happening because they're so overwhelmed. And it's this whole largeness of the problem that you just can't think of how to even get around it. And so my hope is that with the fantasy that I wrote, I can give people some power. I can give them some solutions, and they might seem ever so small. But the thing is that if each of us did all these small things, someone is paying attention. So this is what I put at the very, very end of the book in my author notes, is I'm like, if you're in a position where you're standing at the grocery store and you're staring at the peanut butter, and there's 7 jars of peanut butter in plastic and 1 jar in glass, if you can afford the extra 47 cents or whatever it is, buy the glass jar, because somebody somewhere is crunching the numbers. And if enough of us buy the glass jar, which can be recycled, then they're going to go, okay, something's going on. Everybody's buying glass now. We should just package it in glass, right? I mean, it might seem so simple, but if all of us standing in the grocery store pick the mayonnaise in the glass jar, pick the plastic or the peanut butter in the glass jar, it's these small actions that can make a big difference, because the companies and the corporations that are all selling us this plastic, if we stop accepting it, they will have to come up with a solution.
100% agree, Andy. And I think it's a great initiative that you've embarked on, this book writing, to really get it out to as many people as possible, the story and how this garbage pile that's building up in the ocean is having, a huge impact, as we discussed pre-recording, those endocrine disruptors, which is the microplastics. So that big pile of garbage eventually breaks down into real small nanoparticles that we can't see. However, the fish consume, we consume the fish, and it gets into our food chain, which is, as you mentioned, it's having an impact on fertility, having an impact on. I read an article that they've found it in the carotid arteries in the heart. So it's been laid down and I guess solidified within the arteries of humans, and it's popping up everywhere. There was, other articles that I'm trying to think of where else it's had that implication, but yeah. So let's let's talk a bit about, I guess, how this garbage pile ends up, affecting us humans around health, and then I'm really keen to get into some additional tips around what can each individual do to really make a difference so that we can improve our environment and improve our health.
So, where do you want me to start?
So I think it's really good to talk about this concern that you have around the plastics and breaking down and getting into affecting human health, and then what we can do about it to reverse that.
Some of the very, very basic things to do is, for example, the peanut butter in the glass jar. So you're looking at reducing your exposure to plastic. So instead of buying water in a plastic bottle, buy yourself a stainless steel water bottle and fill it from the tap or wherever. If, and this is again assuming that you have safe drinking water. Now, that's a whole nother aside. That's a whole nother story, the fact that a lot of people don't have good drinking water. But for those of us that are fortunate enough that we can choose a stainless steel water bottle, a non-plastic bottle, do that. So that's sort of step number one. Step two would be look at the foods that you buy. And it seems so small, but so for example, when you're at the grocery store, we're so used to piling all our Brussels sprouts into one of those plastic bags that they offer. And then you put your apples in another plastic bag and your lemons in another plastic bag. But why? Like, I'm going to assume that you're going to wash your produce when you get it home anyway. So just pile it all in your cart in a free for all and wash it when you get home. Like, I don't understand why we do these individual little bags at the grocery store. You can also buy, fabric bags if you like to have your lemons aside from your apples in your grocery cart. Buy some little linen bags and just use those instead of the plastic bags that they offer at the grocery store. Bigger things. Okay, here's one for you. So Halloween has come and gone. And everybody on the street decorated, and I'm thinking, okay, I've got to do something then. Fine. So I go to the local store and I'm looking at all of the Halloween decorations, and it's all plastic garbage. And I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do with this on November 1st? So I thought, I just can't. I can't buy this stuff. I can't do it. I won't allow it. So I grabbed I have a gray sheet. So I grabbed the gray sheet and I have a little ball and I draped that over it and wrapped a cord around its neck and hung it by a bungee cord. And my husband was like, that is so creepy. He's like, that's a scary, scary ghost. And we had neighbors coming up and saying, that's really eerie. So I got my Halloween decorations, scared the local kids, and didn't spend any money, A, and B, didn't contribute to a plastic problem where I'm just going to throw away my plastic skeletons, you know. It's that consciousness of, A, do I need this? B, what can I do otherwise? And I like to think that I channel my grandparents. This is before we had such ease and convenience, and things also pushed at us. We don't need half the stuff that we consume. We just don't.
It's so
And a
true.
lot of sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like I'm just thinking the same with birthday decorations. Like, so all the birthday decorations are all plastic streamers and bonbons and endless stuff. It's all plastic. And I'm thinking it's like, again, it's just buying stuff for a one-off occasion. That where does it end up? It ends up in landfill, and that inadvertently doesn't all make it to landfill. Some, gets into the streets, and the streets wash it out into the ocean. And so
Right.
and I had the same experience around Halloween. I decided to do nothing, but I but I agree with you. I think it really does start with that conscious awareness. Is being like just not copying everyone else, thinking about, well, where's this going to end up? What's the end? And then, as you said, well, not only you worked out another way in which you could reuse things, you used your creativity, and again, that's tapping into other areas of the brain, as well as you saved money. So I actually really like those tips. Is that we need to first of all decide as to how we're going to reuse this item. Can we reuse it? Can we recycle it? Or is it like a one-off use? Then, these one-off uses is what you're saying is we've really got to eliminate that out of our consumerism.
If we're going to go on one use, one of the worst things for the ocean are the plastic bags, single-use plastic bags. Now, a lot of communities are banning them. Where I live now, nobody has them. You either get a paper bag or you bring your own bag, or you just, hold your stuff in your hands and walk to your car, right? Can you imagine? One of the things about plastic bags and balloons, since you mentioned balloons, there's a section in the book where Jelly, who's the heroine, she's the warrior mermaid. She's trying to teach the sea life how to differentiate, particularly turtles, how to differentiate between jellyfish, which is their normal food, and a plastic bag, and also a balloon that's got streamers hanging down. So there's a whole section in there explaining how turtles get confused because they'll just inhale jellyfish and they don't look like, it looks like a jellyfish, and then they swallow this plastic bag and it gets stuck in their intestines and they starve. I what I'm hoping to do with the book is that by giving people a glimpse of the ocean pollution and what, I just toss this thing away and it's somebody else's problem and I don't have to think about it. And hopefully they'll read the book and be like, God, this might kill a turtle. I'm going to start carrying a canvas bag in my car. I'm not willing to do this. I'm not willing to personally contribute to killing these animals because I can't be bothered to carry my own bag. I'm hoping that with this, people will start to take a personal responsibility. And the early reviews that I've had have been great. Not so much that people are like, oh my God, you're such a good writer, but that they're saying, Andie, this is how I've changed. I've gone through my house and I've changed to stainless steel bowls. I've got canvas bags in the car. I put a fork in my purse so that I don't need a plastic fork. I don't take a throwaway cup from the coffee shop. I carry my own mug in there. It's mildly inconvenient. These are mildly inconvenient changes, but they make such a big difference to our overall pollution because you're not contributing to it anymore. You're actually changing and making a difference. That's got to mean something.
Absolutely. And we discussed pre-recording was that impact, we're having on future generations of, our human species. So, we want to start making the change so that they've got a better, safer environment to live in. And you were sharing, and I'd love you to share some of the mental health information you've been reading about, with younger children, and that, there's actually a mental health term for, is it environmental anxiety? What was the?
They're calling it eco-anxiety. And yeah, let me get some stats for you. So I was looking at the Mental Health Commission of Canada. 75% of people living in Canada consider climate change a global emergency. And so this can turn into obsession, fatalistic thinking. It's saying here 1/3 of Canadians believe it's already too late. So then this turns into an existential dread. And then you're helpless. And then you're apathetic. And what does it matter? And then that leads to depression, sadness, trouble sleeping. They're saying that more young people suffer than those of us that are of a more advanced age. But how could they not? So there's another one. This is coming from Yale. They're saying at least 10% of Americans report feeling down, depressed, hopeless for at least several days out of the last 2 weeks because of global warming. 12% of Americans say they struggle to stop themselves from consuming bad news about global warming. So again, these are people that are, they're making themselves sick because of this global problem. And if all of us give up, we're toast, right? We can't do that. Here's the eco-anxiety. So the American Psychology Association describes it as, quote, the chronic fear of environmental cataclysm that comes from observing the seemingly irrevocable impact of climate change and the associated concern for one's future and that of the next generation. And it's only getting, I hate to even say it's getting worse, but we're getting so many storms and fires and the hurricanes are off the charts that it's like, I can't control Mother Nature. I can't make her stop the hurricanes, but I can change my peanut butter jar. And it seems small, but like I keep saying, if it was a global thing that we were all like, okay, we're going to try and not use plastic, there would be no consumers. So they would change. They being the almighty people that are trying to grab our money. They would change because we refuse to buy it.
Yeah, and we can just make those, as you said, it's not huge change. There is change, and I think that's what people get stuck with, is having to change small behaviors. But as you said, just start with one thing, and that's the peanut butter jar. So, and then you can move on to, once you've mastered buying the peanut butter jar and glass, is then go about shopping your vegetables and not putting them in individual plastic bags. And like, as you said, it's then, not taking home plastic bags from the supermarket, these one-off plastic bags. It's, taking your reusable bags and having them, or as you said, you can use your hands as well. So I think these are all little behaviors that we can all do, and it's just a matter of making a start and then changing one aspect. Like a while ago, I changed like all my plastic storage containers to glass.
Yep.
And then I moved on to the the cookware. Like, so I now it's all stainless steel, and I've got rid of all those non-stick, so to speak. And then more recently, it was the cutting boards. So I had plastic cutting boards, and I realized through an education video on YouTube, it was actually an ad actually, but they were educating me, was that obviously when you're cutting into the plastic boards, you generate microplastics which go into the food. So I thought, no way. And so what they were promoting was a titanium cutting board.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just recently acquired titanium cutting boards. So for me, it's just, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next behavior I can change? And how's this going to make a difference? So
there's another part to it, which is your personal health care. So what are you putting on your skin? Not only, do we go through bottles and bottles of shampoo, conditioner, lotion, and all that stuff. They found a lot of companies, and they're getting better because this was brought to awareness, but a lot of those scrubs, you do like a facial skin scrub or a body scrub, those have little beads of plastic. And that goes down the drain, and it eventually goes straight to the ocean. So things like shampoo bars, right? It looks like a bar of soap, or just a bar of soap rather than a liquid soap in your shower. So we've switched over to bar shampoo, bar conditioner, bar lotion. It's the stuff, like I said, it's the stuff that our grandparents would have used before they had the convenience of someone packaging it to you in a pump, a plastic bottle with a pump. And yes, that is all convenient, but you got to think about, where does this trash go? I'm one human, and I think of all the bottles of lotion I've used in my life. That's a lot of trash.
Exactly.
And tubes of toothpaste, right? You can get these things called tooth bites, where they're like little compressed, they look kind of like mints, and they taste like mints. And it's really weird when you first start using them, because you're chewing on them. So your brain automatically thinks, I have to swallow this. But you don't. You just chew it up, and then you brush your teeth. So you eliminate more plastic tubing that way.
Wow. That's incredible insights, Andie. Share a little bit about the book and the story, just so that you can bring the listeners into what you've created.
Okay. So the book is called The Mermaid's Wrath, and it features Jelly, who is a warrior mermaid, and her people are the Mers, and they have to live, excuse me a sec. They have to live under a magical bubble to protect them from the nanoplastics. But it's still getting through. It's so concentrated that they need protective gear when they go outside the bubble. And she's furious. She's furious at the humans. She despises us because she thinks that we're just morons, that we can't see our way out of this, and that we have no thought or consideration for what our actions do to the planet, in her particular case, to the ocean. And so within the book, I've peppered it with environmental facts. And so it's sobering in spots, because you're thrust into her world, and she is living in our garbage dump. And so part of it can be bleak, but she does meet with people who are living thoughtfully. And she does, by the end of the book, and I won't give it away, but let's say, okay, in chapter one ends with her blowing up the laundry detergent section of a superstore. because she's so angry and overwhelmed at just this vast array of laundry detergent all in big plastic jugs. And of course, she sees these floating in the ocean and they never break down, or once they do, they just pollute the water, like you said, in these tiny, tiny pieces. By the end of the book, there is a solution to that. So we do circle back to that anger that she has. But so through the book, I talk about what humans have done to the ocean and the impact it's had on the sea life. And so you're living it through this mermaid. For example, things like nuclear testing. Like I never thought, what did that do to the ocean and to the whales and to the dolphins and the fish? And there are there's radioactive waste up around, oh, I can't think of the name off the top of my head. It's in the Arctic. It's on it's from the Russians testing. The Americans blew up the Bikini Atolls, and I can't bring the name of where Russia was testing. But all their radioactive waste is sunk in the ocean to the point that Scandinavian countries are trying to get together with them to say we need to clean this up because it's impacting our fishing industry. The ocean has no boundaries. The ocean has no, well, this is your water and this is my water. Like, there's no containing my pollution versus your pollution. Someone flicks a cigarette butt in the ocean in China, it's going to wash up in Bermuda, like eventually somewhere, right? And we've had this bad habit, at least in Western countries, that we just ship our pollution off to countries in Asia, and they've stopped taking it. But we were doing that. We were just taking our trash and sending it to them, and they don't have the facilities, so they just burn it. And so it goes to the air. So then I'm breathing that eventually, right? There's some awful thing that something like 6% of our plastic is actually recycled. And this is North America, 6%. So that number on the bottom, that number 1 or number 2 that we so dutifully rinse out our yogurt pots and put them in the recycling and haul it out to the curb, that's simply a label of what's inside. It doesn't mean that it gets recycled. It means it's the easiest to recycle, but it doesn't mean that it happens. So this is why I say just try to stop using so much plastic, period. Because we can't count on our governments to necessarily have the facilities or the manpower or whatever to do the recycling that we need them to do.
Yeah, it's taking the ownership, accountability ourselves, and making a change, making a difference, really helping our mental health because we're actually making progress. We feel that we're making a difference, and we stop that paralysis, we stop that over catastrophizing because we're actually doing something. We're not sitting back and just watching it all unfold, reading all the negative press. We're actually out there, as you've done. You've taken it, taking, well, I guess, all this information you've researched and studied, produced a book out of it, and now going out there and promoting the book to get it into as many hands as possible so that people can get educated, empowered, and so that they can then make a difference themselves. And it's like creating this global movement, which ultimately, as you said, the consumer will drive the direction of these major corporations. And if the consumer's not buying the plastics, the corporations will stop packaging in plastics because no one's buying it. So
That's right. And the book is it's not all doom and gloom. Don't get me wrong on that. It's to set the scene of her life living in today's ocean. It's to give us a view of what it might be like to live beneath the Great Pacific Garbage Patch as a, thinking human, but with a tail. There is one thing that I wanted to point out, and I don't have it pulled up on my computer to give you the exact name of the committee, but the world is trying. The governments are trying. There is an international. Trying to come to an international treaty on plastic, so that globally we're tackling it. And I believe there's about 160 countries involved in the talks. And whether they get anywhere, God only knows. But they're trying. They do recognize that it is a global issue, all the way from manufacturing to the packaging that ends up in our homes. So fingers crossed, there is action. There's also the Ocean Cleanup, which is an organization that is trying to suck the pollution out of the ocean. So that's exciting. Quite what they're going to do with it then, I am not sure. You know what I mean? Okay, so you've got it out of the ocean, but then what? Do we bury it? Like, I don't know. I know that they say one of the main things we need to do is stop the pollution at the rivers. Because then that obviously helps it not get into the oceans. I would like it to take it a step further and say, go buy a stainless steel water bottle and stop buying water in a jug or in a plastic bottle.
Yeah, I agree. There's always that next step that we can, and it's like that constant never-ending improvement. So yeah, we just need to make a start, make some inroads as to how we're currently consuming things, and change that and just build on it and build on it and build on it. And over time, it's going to be so much better than what it used to be. So, I was once a consumer of plastic water bottles, no longer, many years ago, but, as you said, I have contributed to the problem, but now I'm doing my best to correct. And it all starts with awareness, and you're making people more aware. Once they're aware, they've got that conscious awareness that they can then actually change behaviors. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some insights around your book and the size of the problem and what we can do about it. Andie, how can the listener buy your book? Where can they find it?
So The Mermaid's Wrath is releasing on the 25th of November, and at the moment it's currently just with Amazon. Excuse me. I don't know if I'll take it wide. It seems that Amazon, love them or hate them, they have the global grip on books. So I'm starting with them because my hope is to reach as many people as possible that they think that they're reading a romance story about a mermaid that comes to the surface and, oh, it's just so cute. Oh my God, wait a minute. What is happening in the ocean? This is what I'm hoping, is that people pick it up because they're curious or they like mermaids and they're like, yeah, okay, I could get into that. And then hopefully as they're reading, they're going to fact check me. Hopefully they're going to be like, no way is it that bad. And then they're going to go and they're going to look up how big is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And they're going to go, oh my God. And then they'll keep reading and they'll think, toothpaste bites, I've never even heard of that. Shampoo bars, okay. That's the point of the book. The point of the book is to entertain people, give them some information, give them some education within a fantasy story, and then give them some actionable things that they can do. So when they close the book, they feel empowered. That's the point of The Mermaid's Wrath. But anyway, yes, it's coming out on the 25th.
Fantastic. And yeah, really encourage listeners to go to Amazon. I think most people have got an Amazon account and purchase a copy of Andie's book. I'll include the link in the show notes, and really appreciate you coming on today, Andie, really making us more aware of the impact that we're having on the environment and what we can do about it and how we can make a difference. So thank you once again for coming on the show, Andie.
Thank you so much for having me. Love being here.
You're welcome. Podcast disclaimer. This podcast and any information, advice, opinions or statements within it do not constitute medical, healthcare or professional advice and are provided for general information purposes only. All care is taken in the preparation of the information in this podcast. Connected Wellness Proprietary Limited
operating under the brand me&my Health Up, does not make any representations or give any warranties about its accuracy, reliability, completeness, or suitability for any particular purpose. This podcast and any information, advice, opinions, or statements within it are not to be used as a substitute for professional, medical, psychological, psychiatric, or any other mental health care or healthcare in general. me&my Health Up recommends you seek the advice of a doctor or qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Inform your doctor of any changes that you may to your lifestyle and discuss these with your doctor. Do not disregard medical advice or delay visiting a medical professional because of something you hear in this podcast. This podcast has been carefully prepared on the basis of current information. Changes in circumstances after publication may affect the accuracy of this information. To the maximum extent permitted by the law, me&my Health Up disclaims any such representations or warranties to the completeness, accuracy, merchantability, or fitness for purpose of this podcast and will not be liable for any expenses, losses, damages incurred, indirect or consequential damages or costs that may be incurred as a result of the information being inaccurate or incomplete in any way and for any reason. No part of this podcast can be reproduced, redistributed, published, copied, or duplicated in a form without prior permission of me&my Health Up.